Hello everybody. As Sarah said, my name is Josiah White. I am a software programmer slash developer slash engineer. There's no difference between any of those words, just so you know. You call yourself whatever you want. I work at Gulfstream. I've worked there since about 2013. I work in the simulators, not in like the pilot simulators, but like the whole aircraft simulator. I work with interfacing with the simulators and making it easier for people to access data, process data, understand data better, stuff like that. It's a really fun job. It's intense and confusing, which is great. So I started learning Python in 2012 when I was finishing up my degree. I have a degree in physics, so I am not a big E engineer, which again, you don't have to have an engineering degree to call yourself an engineer. So don't worry about that. So I started learning Python when I was graduating, and I thought it was a fun language. Before I had learned a little bit of C, C++, but Python was much more intuitive, things like that. And I started really getting into Python when I started at Gulfstream, and I've been programming that pretty heavily since then. And I want to be an evangelist for Python, but I don't want to do it in the way that everyone does with their preferred language of choice. So I'm not going to have any slides. I'm not going to go through the fundamentals of Python. And that may shock you, but I have a reason why. Because if you are not a programmer, I'm not going to convince you to want to program Python by showing you the fundamentals of Python, because you're not going to understand any of the stuff that I'm talking about if you're not a programmer. So, by show of hands, how many people would not consider themselves a programmer? So, all of you, how many of you have wanted to create an app or have some tedious task that you want to automate, but you can't because I don't want to learn some hard languages? Does anyone ever follow that? I do. I think of that all the time, even though I sit in front of the computer all day. So I want to convince you that Python is the language for you, even though you're not a programmer. And by doing that, I don't want to go through the fundamentals, as I said. I want to show you that the ethos of Python makes it really easy to do your thing. That's where the title comes from, do your thing, right? So if you no matter what your job is, there's something that you could probably do with Python. So I'll give you an example of when I first fell in love with Python. We had some big programming challenge that had databases and electronic boxes and stuff like that. We all got together and we started planning, and we started assigning tasks. You go do database, I'll work on the app or whatever, and he told me, okay, we need to be able to generate QR codes. Anyone not know what QR codes are? Okay, good. Well, so you've probably seen them before. It's like a square with a bunch of black rectangles within it, and you can use your phone to scan it. They carry information. Once you see it, you'll probably recognize it. So part of the task was to have a QR code that we could all scan with our phones. And he said, okay, I want you to be able to figure out how to do it in Python. And if you think about that, Python, or a QR code is a pretty complicated thing. There's all those squares, they all have to be lined up perfectly, and that's not something that can just be done right away. If you want to start off writing a QR code in whatever language, it's going to take you months, if not years, to get a good foundation going. So I was like, okay, this is going to be my task for the next several months. So like any good, real, true programmer, first thing I did was I Googled it, Python QR code. It's that simple. And several links came up, and I was like, there's several ways of generating QR codes. So I followed the first link, and I had an example. So I opened up my console, and I started typing, and I produced a QR code within about 5 minutes. And I showed it to my friend, or my coworkers, and they're like, you're done? You generated a QR code? And I was like, yeah. I just followed the first link, did it. And they were kind of blown away, because we're all somewhat inexperienced. And we quickly found out as we went along this journey was that programming in general is not about figuring out for yourself. It's about finding someone who's already done it and just copying their work. But disguising it so it doesn't seem like you're copying. So but the great thing about the Python ecosystem ethos is it's all about copying other people's work and finding someone who has done it before. So as you get more immersed with it and you Google Python blank, whatever my thing is, you'll probably find someone who has done it before. And that's my main job, is piecing together other people's ideas. So what I want to do is I want to do some of those live. So I don't have slides. I'm not going to show you what a for loop is, or what a list is, or what's great about dictionaries, because if you're not a programmer, you're not going to care about these things. It's not going to entice you. But by showing you these really short examples, I hope to convince you that you can figure out something to do. So, for example, if you're a graphics designer and you want to create a QR code for your poster or whatever, you don't want to learn the fundamentals of C in order to produce a small image. There's probably plenty of websites that you could go to create a QR code, but if you want to put something sensitive in there, or if you don't want it leaked to the entire internet, or you don't want it data mined, you probably want to do it on your computer. So there's good reasons of using Python by yourself. So I have a console window open here. The great thing about Python is that you don't really have to compile things. You have a console that you can type into. So I try to make the text as big as possible, but it seems like the text is never big enough. So can everyone see the writing here? Okay, that's good. So I will be sharing the code. I have several scripts that I'll be able to share afterwards, so you can, if you don't follow along, that's okay. So I'm just going to sit down and plug away. And if you have an idea, or if you want to stop me halfway through to understand more about the script, you can. This is somewhat unorthodox and dynamic, so please stop me. So I want to do what I did with the QR codes right now. So pretend I Googled Python QR code, I followed the first link, I got the first example, and I installed the module, which is, that's another process that I'm not really going to explain here, is you have to install the module. But that's super simple too. You'll figure that out when you realize that you're a Pythonista. So I'm just going to type in import QR code. No errors yet. That's great. So I want to make an image. So I'm going to do QR code dot make, and then I can put whatever I want in there. For now, I'm going to put in Wall Street Labs rocks. Went off the page. Hit enter. You have to spell things right. Python does not help you if you don't know how to spell. There we go. So now I'm going to save the image. Alright, I saved the image, and I should be able to bring it up here. So if you have a phone that can scan from there, you should be able to see that that says Wall Street Labs rocks. And it's really that simple. You can go from not knowing anything about QR codes with Python to generating something that fast. So I told Sarah that my presentation was probably going to go a little short. And depending on how many errors I have, that's probably going to be true. So I apologize if you're not getting your money's worth out of it. So, does it say what I think it says?
No, it's user error on my part. So.
Okay. Well, we can get there too. So, we'll just trust that it really does say.
I can do it. I can bring my phone up and do it.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Make sure. Yeah. It does say. part. That's okay. That's user error.
And then it took me to Google. And then I put in Bull Street Rocks, and then I got Bull Street Taco.
Really? Close enough.
Yeah,
That
cool.
place also rocks. Okay, so one other really hard thing to do is internet stuff. If you want to scrape the web for information, or you want to pull down info from a website or something like that, there's a module called requests that uses standard HTTP protocols to use the internet, just like you would a browser. So you first Google what is requests, and then you find a bunch of examples, and then you can do import requests, and then do requests.get, and you can put in whatever website you want, but I'm going to do Google for now. Don't forget the www. I'm going to save the entire Google website into Python. Boom. So now I have, I just used web protocols to get the Google website. So if I do google.content, there's the entire thing. So that's all the HTML, all the JavaScript, everything, within 2 lines of Python code. So if you ever want the text of a website, there you go. And there's a million other uses for it. So if you ever go to Facebook or Google and you actually look in your URL bar, you'll see a bunch of archaic symbols and things like that that help call the website. The website is kind of like a function, you know. So a request actually helps you use the website like a function. So I could search in Google from Python toolbar if I wanted to, but I'm not going to right now. So you'll notice, if you know anything about web protocols, HTTPS, the S stands for secure, and there's all these protocols that go along with it. There's SSL encryption, and you'll hear about man-in-the-middle attacks and certificate errors and things like that. The web is a very complicated thing, and if you wanted to write your own web crawler in C or Python, it would take you, again, months to do. But I did it in 2 lines. So making sure that I actually got Google and not some fake website set up by the Russians, Request does that, all automatically. So it's super powerful. So let's say you want to write an app that gets stock info, and you Google around and you see that Yahoo is still relevant and that you can still get stock info from Yahoo. So you want to be able to pull that information into your code so that you can write a code that will crack Wall Street and you'll become a trillionaire, right? That's everyone's dream. So you find an app or a module called Yahoo Finance. So you do from Yahoo Finance, import, share. And then I want Apple shares. I want the whole history of Apple. So I do Apple equals share. And the stock symbol is AAPL. Put that in. Enter. Uh-oh. There's some sort of weird error. Plot twist, I knew that was going to happen. So, one thing that's unfortunate about Python, and I want to be totally real with you, is that because it's all community driven, it's all open source, that sometimes things get abandoned. So your first Google search won't always be your last, right? So I was actually, when I was preparing this, I encountered this error and I had to figure out, well, what's going on? What's a URL error? Why is there so much red text? And it took me a while to figure it out. It turns out that Yahoo Finance changed their website around, and whoever wrote this original module didn't update their code. So this module is now broken, beyond repair. But it still exists for you to download and make the same mistake I did. So you'll have to go through another process of having to Google this error, and you'll find what I found was someone asking in 2017, hey, why do I get this big error? And then you'll see that there is another module called Fix Yahoo Finance that you can use. So you again go through the whole rigmarole of that process. So instead of Yahoo Finance, you'll say from Fix Yahoo Finance. I can tab complete, which is great. Actually, I want to. So, and I not only want to take the data, but I want to be able to plot it so I can see just real quickly what's been going on with Apple. So you Google that and you find that there's a great plotting software called Matplotlib, stands for Matrix Plot Library or something like that. I don't know. So you do from matplotlib dot pyplot import plot. And it gives you some weird error, but don't worry about that. It's boring. So again, I want Apple shares. So instead of calling share, there's something called ticker. So whoever wrote Fix Yahoo Finance not only rewrote it, but also changed a lot of the syntax. So that'll be part of the fun, is figuring out this new module. So I'm trying to be real with you. Sometimes it's not easy. And I had to figure this all out, and you will have to as well. But it's still a lot easier than calling C++ code, you know. So I get Apple, and then I want to get all the historical data of Apple. So I do apple.history, and I want the entire history of Apple. So I say I want the entire period. Takes a while to load, and then I want to be able to plot that history. So I want just the closing values. So there's the min of the day, the max of the day, and the close of the day. I don't really care about the close. So as you research, you'll find out that you do history.close. And of course, it's called historical, not history. So I told you there would be errors. And it creates this plot. So you see pretty flat, and then there's a gigantic spike, and that's why they're a $1 trillion company. So again, really simple. This is somewhat of a more complicated example because you're using Yahoo Finance and a plotting tool, but you combine them all into one, and you get an awesome chart. So you could write code that calls Yahoo Finance every day, gets Apple's info, feed it into your awesome algorithm, and then buy and sell automatically, and then go broke. That's what everyone does when they try this. Just so you know, you cannot break the stock market because it's built on humans, not on numbers. So this did go a little faster than I thought. I apologize for that. It's because there was no errors. I was expecting some errors. So instead, I want to ask someone in the audience, what is your thing and how do you want to get there? Like, what's the thing that you want to automate? I want to try to write a script live. So does anyone have a suggestion of what they want to do?
A pretty common thing is if you have a pretty sort of trashy data set full of junk, and there's just some stuff that you want to be able to extract from it. Let's say just text data. Because you get some kind of dump from, say, some old database system or something like that that's obsolete. You need to get it, clean it up, and make it to where you can use it in a more modern system, something like that.
So you want to be able to clean up junk data from a database.
Yeah. It could be an XML database or a report from like a lot of these old systems, they don't output SQL, they just output text. So you need to take that and make it sensible.
Yeah. So you could use regular expressions for that to clean up junk data, or if it's XML, you could use elementary or something like that. That's somewhat too complicated to do live.
Too complicated?
Yeah. Sorry.
That's just something I've run into over and over again.
Yeah.
So you want to scrape something with like an available API or like data set that's already able to be parsed immediately, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So kind of random, chaotic. You end up, your input's kind of random and chaotic, and your output needs to make some kind of sense.
Yeah. So if you do want to use, you mentioned SQL, right?
A lot of these old systems don't use SQL; they just have text output.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I did use regular expressions to parse this crazy text file that I got. I didn't know what it was. It was a bunch of latitude and longitudes for airports, and it was probably an established standard, but I didn't know it, and I was too lazy to look it up, so I just kind of figured it out. But yeah, you could use, there's something called regular expressions that you can try to find patterns in the text and extract them, and it's really simple. It's called RE. It's built into Python. You don't have to download it. So, are there other examples?
Sure. How about want to write something, or I want you to write something? It's going to tell me what Major League Baseball games are happening today.
Can you repeat that for the viewers? So
Yes. So, you want to find out what Major League Baseball games are happening today.
Yeah.
That's a great example. So, what's the first thing that a real programmer would do? Google it. You don't want to do, man, figuring out things for yourself is boring. So, I'm going to Google it. That's it. So, I want to do Python Major League Baseball. Whoa, look at that. MLB game in Python. So.
Is he a plant? Did you ask him to ask that?
No, I did not. And it was the third link, so I was getting real nervous. I was like, man, it's not at the top. It doesn't exist then. Okay, so we got MLB game here, so we have to find an example. So this is a great website called PyPI, Python Package Index. So this is probably the site that you're going to go to if you ever search for a module. And oftentimes they'll link to the source code and examples and stuff like that. This one's a little bit threadbare, so we'll have to do a little bit more to get examples. So there's documentation, so we'll click that. Boom. There's an example. So I'm going to put this off to the side and type it live. So first I need to actually get MLB game. So I'll show you how to do that. So this is a program called PyCharm. Has anyone ever used JetBrains, IDEs, or anything like that? So PyCharm is amazing. It's free, as long as you use it for yourself. And it catches so many common problems with Python that will make you go a lot faster when you're learning and just generally programming. So to get MLB game, I will type pip install MLB game. And then I wait nervously. Oh, it's downloading. Things are happening. Yes. Okay. So we have MLB game. Now we have to run it here, and I have to restart the console, resize, so people can actually see it. I'm going to import MLB game, and then I'm going to look at the. So I want to find out MLB game games. And you want today, right? Do you know what baseball? Don't tell me. but do you know what games are happening today so you can double check?
One or
Okay.
two.
Sweet. All right, so as for the year, the month, and what team do you want?
Whatever teams are playing today.
Okay, so we'll just give it the year and the month and the day, which is 16. See if this works. That's a good sign. It's not doing anything. There we go. So I'm going to do for game in games. Here's where we actually start getting into the actual syntax of Python. So you notice that I'm kind of doing things backwards. I'm showing you all the cool stuff that you can do, so that while we go into the boring stuff like for loops and if statements, stuff like that, you'll actually pay attention because you want to know what's the games. So I'm going to do for game in games. So games is a big list of games that are going to happen, and I'm going to print out those games. So I'm going to go through the entire list and look at the game. So that's not helpful at all. Let's see, another example. I think, so, do you know who's playing today?
Braves.
Braves? Okay, so we're going to maybe make it a little easier on ourselves. We're going to recall games with home team. Are they home or away?
Away.
Okay, so we'll do away equals Braves. Oh, no games today. Let's try it again.
Try home.
What's that?
Try home.
Okay. So you see how I'm just typing away equals, home equals, things like that. So those are variables. If you see them highlighted in red, that means that it's a what's called a keyword argument. So
you just guess that word, like home, and then...
Yeah, so I'm cheating. I'm looking at the documentation.
Okay.
So I see that it says home equals, in the example, it's the Mets. No one cares about the Mets. I don't know why you use that in example. But I guess because home equals Mets, that you could also do away equals Mets, right? So if you're a smart programmer and you're making an MLB game, you would program that in. So you have to, when you're making these, you have to anticipate what the user is going to do. So I said home equals Braves, and then I got a list of games. So, let's see. What I'm going to do instead is, it's another list of one game. Cardinals at Braves. Is that right?
Yeah.
Sweet. So, if you wanted to write your own Major League Baseball app, we just did that live. And I swear we did not plan this. I'm not even a baseball fan. I didn't even know that the Mets were a team until I guessed it.
This is a silly question. If I wanted to know this, why would I not just go straight to Google?
Well, so I would not do this if I... So her question was, why not just Google it, right? Is that essentially your question? No, why do this in Python? Why not just Google it? So in this case, I wouldn't... If I wanted to know who the Braves were playing today, I wouldn't do this in Python. But if I wanted to create an app or like a little display for myself, and I wanted to write in Python, then I would do that, right? So I wouldn't have to Google it. Maybe I could set up an app that shows, you know, the full calendar of who the Mets or the Braves are playing this month and who they're playing today. And I'm guessing because it says Cardinals 0 at Braves 0, that this also shows the score. So I could probably call this repeatedly and get the score live, you know. So it's not about, you know, remaking the internet. It's about how you can integrate this into your own code. Does that make sense? So we're still a little short on time.
So you would recommend, so if you were going to build an app, you would use the back end as Python to try to put back into the front end instead of, say,
So
Can you repeat the question?
yeah, so her question was, if you were to build an app or a program, would you write the back end in Python? So by back end, she means like what's running on the server. What I, the user, use, that's called the front end. So the back end is all the mystery code that the user doesn't know about. So I would say yes. I would say Python is good to use in the back end. And one of the examples I wanted to do is actually creating a web app in Python. And that's something I do every day. There's a module called Flask. And if you Google Pinterest Flask, you'll see that Pinterest was built, the whole backend is built on Python using this module called Flask. And actually there's several companies that use Python as their backend. So it's not the fastest. So there's a saying that Python is the second best language for everything. Not the first best, it's the second best. So if you really wanted to make a fast web app, you probably wouldn't use Python. But Pinterest made it work, so they are happy with second best. But if you're Google or someone who needs to return billions of results within milliseconds, you'd probably write something else. Short answer, yes. I would definitely use Python. And I have.
You think it's more intuitive than the other?
Yeah, so like there are other back-end languages. Her question was, is Python more intuitive than other languages? So I would say yes. You can use JavaScript to write back-end, and I just don't like JavaScript. There's a lot of weirdness that happens. Python is much more upfront about what's happening, but JavaScript can be really confusing.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
My other question was, and you mentioned this, and I don't care what time you use it, if you talk about the library of Python, my question is, you're saying people build things and then they don't keep them up.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about Tom versus there's thousands of people that keep it up.
Yeah.
So, as you building a web app, talk for your job, how do you ensure that these little things don't break? Because they don't keep this up. You don't, people who are, it just seems like, I think the main power of one or the other is the popularity of it.
Yeah.
If I'm doing something for my business or I'm going to build a personal app, reliability would be my concern.
Yeah, so her question is, if you're building a web app that's using Python, and say you're using Yahoo Finance to build your app, and then one day you get your whole website breaks, and you have to dig through whatever to find out that Yahoo changed their URL or something, it's going to be bad for you, and it's going to happen without warning. So there is always an inherent risk in using someone else's software.
I mean, that happens in NPM too, but
Yeah.
does the frequency of Python happen more because it's not as supported,
So the question was, does Python, does that happen more? People abandoning their software. Does it happen more in Python? I don't know. But so some companies will kind of cheat. They'll actually hire people to work full-time on open source software, which seems counterintuitive, because if Google hires someone to work on Flask and then Pinterest uses what Google paid for, then they're kind of, they just gave Pinterest a lot of development time for free. But that's just the reality of where software is going, is more and more people are using open source software, that we're becoming so reliant on it that it's like they're too big to fail, if you remember that whole business. So some like Flask and other modules, they can't not be maintained. So I actually met the guy who maintains Flask, and he works in San Diego on a full-time job, And when he got the job, he said, hey, I'm the maintainer of Flask, and you use Flask, and I want to keep writing it, so will you give me time to keep it up? And they said, yeah. We use it every day, so it's kind of part of the development cost. So obviously no one was paying whoever wrote Yahoo Finance to keep it up, or else they need to fire him.
And a lot of the, if people are new to programming, I assume that you don't have to learn a lot of this stuff because with Python, like all the object-oriented structure and all that. Is that something that you need to become familiar with, or can you get away with just ignoring that for the first time?
So his question was, when you're starting off with Python, can you ignore all the really complicated stuff? And the answer is no. So I started off making a QR code with 3 lines of Python. That was super simple. But even so, it's like, you still have to know what dot means, right? QR code dot make. What does the dot mean? What does make mean? What do parentheses mean? You still will have to learn all that stuff. You'll have to know what for gaming games means. What's the square brackets 0? All that you will have to learn, and you will have to learn what object-oriented means and class means. But now's not the time for that.
Yeah. In your work, do you have to use a lot of classes and that type of thing, instantiating stuff and having dependencies and all that for your job?
I use them exclusively.
Yeah.
So because
makes it more reusable.
Yeah. So if you don't know, object-oriented code is a paradigm that has existed for decades about keeping everything intact and accessible throughout your program. And I would recommend learning that pretty fast before you start making mistakes. But I want to just ensure you that you can get there, but first you can do your thing before you have to learn object-oriented code. So, any other questions?
One, like just as an alternative to Python, just for general knowledge, anything that you would recommend personally, like as other languages that are like Python that would be easy to get into?
So his question is, are there any other languages that I would recommend getting into? I'd say Python. Seriously, that's all I use.
Yeah.
Sometimes I had to use C++ because I had to write a plugin for X-Plane, which is a flight simulator software, and it was painful.
I know a lot of people who are into Python have started messed around with Go pretty recently.
Yeah.
For similar reasons that it's easy to deal with.
Yeah. So, like I said, Python is the second best language for everything. There's a lot of Python. I don't want to say created a movement, but like there's a lot of other languages that are popping up that are easy to use and have a lot of functionality. Go, as you mentioned, R for statistics, Clojure, Rust, Ruby, which Creative Coast does a lot with. Ruby on Rails, which is that's like an alternative to Flask. Not really an alternative. They probably built up at the same time. But when I first moved here, Creative Coast was advertising Ruby on Rails classes, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. I didn't bother Googling it, so I was lazy. But I found out later that it's used for making websites. So.
Did you go straight from your physics degree into software development?
Yeah. So his question was, did I go straight from physics to software development? Kind of, I guess. So I had an internship at an astronomy lab for a while. I used a language called IDL, which I forgot what it stands for, but it is mainly scientists use it to access data. It has a lot of functions to get like satellite imagery, things like that. But on the side, I started writing Othello, the game. I started writing that in Python as a way of learning it. I got paid to do it. So I got out of that internship And if you have just a bachelor's in physics, that's the end of your physics career. You need to get a PhD. So I didn't want to get a PhD, so I lucked out and got the Gulfstream job. Any other questions, or do you want to create another app real fast?
We're getting closer to 1 o'clock, so if anyone has a